why should we replace their wealthy businessman on the Republican side with one on the Democratic side? It's a fair question. My answer to that is, this race isn't about money, it's about values. It's about what you stand for, it's about what you've been doing your whole life. And ask the question, what have people been doing? You know what I've been doing. I've been trying to create childcare and preschool for kids, for at-risk kids. Low-income kids in school districts getting school breakfast. Standing up for civil rights. Standing up for human rights. Those are the things that I've been doing for decades. It's what I believe in. It's what I will do as your governor, and so much more. And so I'm happy to take any questions for you, because I want to make clear to you that I will be a governor who will stand up for working families and people who are striving to get to the middle class and rebuilding the safety net in this state after this failed governor.
A couple questions ahead of you. Hold on a second. All right. You just walked in there. We got a couple people ahead of you. We're going to take everyone's questions.
Well, I know you're a member of the press. I mean, I'm happy to, I did before I came in, I took questions from the press, happy to take it after. I really think the residents here should be asking the questions. Thanks. That one here.
Thank you very much. All right. So we have several people have put some things in, and we're some of them have kind of repeated, and some of them have like a kind of a general theme. But the one that we're picking some of these out at random. But one thing that people are kind of concerned about, obviously we're sitting in the auditorium of a school. The school is going to be 100 years old next year. One question from a person in the audience: should our schools get funded through income tax versus property taxes? What's the benefit of that? And could the fund distribution be more equitable?
I tried to start to answer that earlier, and just the brief answer is we need a progressive income tax. We need the state to step up to the plate and pay for much more of our education funding so that local property taxes aren't the big burden that they are today, and it will allow local property, cities, municipalities to make decisions, all of you voting to make the decisions about what it is that you'll do with your local property taxes, rather than the gimmick that Bruce Rauner has put forward of saying property tax freeze, but not changing any of the formula that will pay for our schools. We need to step up to the plate and pay for our schools at the state level.
Yeah, that's working now. Thank you very much. And then when we're done, if there's any more follow-up questions, please, we'll take people's hands and stuff. We're going to kind of jump all over the. Sure. It won't be. Kind of jump all over the map a little bit. This next question has to do with abortion. Would you sign a bill that supports abortion, even if the Supreme Court rules to overturn Roe v. Wade?
So we should talk a lot about this, because for those of you who don't know, how many here people raise your hand know what HB 40 is? Okay, for those of you who don't know what it is, back in the mid-70s.
Was that like a British band? It was UB40.
It was their cousin's HB 40, less successful. So HB 40, you should know, has to do with language that's still on the books today in the state of Illinois, that if Donald Trump is able to appoint another justice and has a 5-4 majority, and overturns Roe v. Wade, which he may end up being able to do even today, it's unclear. If that happens, and it therefore gets left up to the states, we actually still have the laws on the books in the state of Illinois that make this an anti-choice state from back in the 70s. So HB 40 would remove that language, because we are not an anti-choice state. We are a pro-choice state. The majority, a vast majority of people in the state of Illinois favor a woman's right to choose and women's health, and we should make sure that we stand up for that. Just so you know, my bona fides on this issue, I didn't start protesting on this issue in January at the Women's March or at the Science March or, in the other opportunities this last year. but rather more than 25 years ago I began protesting and standing up for a woman's right to choose. It's something my mother was doing in the 70s, so I learned it from the best. And it isn't just about protesting or standing up. I want you to know that the Senate sponsor and the House sponsor of HB 40 are both supporters of mine. Representative Sarah Feigenholtz and Senator Heather Staines, both supporting me because they've known me and my work on this issue for decades.
I think you probably covered some of this, and there's just several questions that kind of have to do with pension underfunding. And let's say it's January 2019. You're sworn in as governor. What would be like your first 100 days finance-wise?
Yeah, in terms of pensions.
Let's start with the pension. Yeah, pension.
Yeah. So I want to go back to say one last thing I wanted to say about HB 40 and standing up for women's right to choose. Our governor today said when he was running that he's pro-choice. His wife said that he was pro-choice. And he got elected and people thought he was pro-choice. And then HB 40 was proposed and passed and came to him and he said, oh, I'm going to veto it. So he's not pro-choice. Make no mistake, this governor either lied to us back in 2014 or he changed his views because his right-wing buddies in the Koch brothers network or in state government today, the right-wing legislators told him that they would primary him if he signed HB 40, and so he's announced he's not going to sign HB 40. So I have been part of phone banks and working with people to try to pressure him to live up to his promises that he made in 2014 and sign HB 40. So on this pension issue, and we talked about it, but we need to, maybe some of you know this, but I want to just give you a bit of history about how we got to where we are in the state of Illinois on this pension issue. A Republican governor and a Democratic legislature put in place an amortization schedule for payments into the pension plan beginning in 1995. And think about this for your own home. This is what the amortization schedule said. In other words, the payments each year that would go into the system said. It went like this for about 10 years or so, and then it turned upward. And now it's gone seemingly exponential. And along the way, by the way, there were payments that were skipped. So you know what all of that does to your home if you did that. And nobody could possibly manage through a budget, a home budget that looks like this. And so that's where we are. We are right at the cusp of going exponential. So today, roughly speaking, about a $7 billion payment is owed. That's up from $2 billion, and it's going to $16 billion and more. So we need to change that amortization schedule, number one. We need to step up the payments. It's the same thing you would do on your own home. If you wanted to change the future payments on your own home, you'd have to step up the payments now, and you could flatten it out. It's the only way to make the budget balance going forward. It's the only way to make the budget manageable going forward is to step up and pay those a higher amount earlier and flatten it out over some period of time. We can do that. There is a plan that's been put on the table that will do that. It requires some leadership and vision, and it requires somebody to be honest with the public about why and how we're going to do that and getting elected on it, and then I believe we'll be able to get it done.
This is a two-part question. It has to do with a couple other people that are involved in Illinois politics. One is Mike Madden, and the other one is Rob Blagojevich. There's a couple questions, and if you could just answer. Let's say you become governor, you have to work with all members of the General Assembly, including the Speaker. Some people love the Speaker, other people not so enamored with him. How would you handle that type of situation?
I think the most important thing to know is that I'm an independent thinker, an independent actor. I've been independently, operating my whole life, and And so that's how I would be as governor. I think it's incredibly important to know that, you know, it's important to have a governor who will be independent, who can step into the room with whoever the Speaker of the House is going to be, or whoever the President of the Senate is going to be. Because remember, the governor doesn't get to choose who the Speaker of the House is. It's the people of the district that elect the representatives, and then it's the representatives that elect their Speaker. So whoever you show up and face, you know, as governor is who you're going to walk into the room and make a, you know, and sit down and figure out how you're going to put a budget together and get things done. The last thing I'd say is that, you know, being completely independent that's not the only factor that's involved. You also have to be somebody who has been involved in negotiations before, who knows how to get something done. Remember what this governor has been doing, and I think it's because he was, you know, he believed himself to be king or whatever of the business that he was running. And so what he did was he came into office and walked into the room, and think about this for a negotiation. He walked into the room and said, well, tell me all of your ideas that you want to get done in this budget, and those were laid out on the table, and then he took those and he walked out of the room and he splayed them about for the media and said, these are all horrible ideas and these people in the room are horrible people, and then he walked right back in the room and said, great, tell me more about what you'd like to get done. And he continued to do that over and over again, and you know, continued to simply badmouth the people who were in the room. That is not how you get a negotiation done, completed, not how you get a deal done. So I know how to get things done. I have worked hard in my life to solve big problems, bringing people together. I told you about some of those things, and all of those things that I talked about to you. Whether it's solving the problem of kids in low-income districts getting school breakfast, or the Holocaust Museum, or the other things. Those are all things that I didn't do alone. I worked with community leaders and with nonprofit leaders and with everyday Illinoisans and business leaders to solve a real problem. You walk in the room and you try to figure out what is the best way to get from here to where the solution is, and let's all do that together. Let's work together to get that done. That's what I've been doing, leading, providing vision, and then shoulder to the wheel, pulling on the oar with others.
There's, and I think you had kind of addressed the, you know, the pension situation and what people can see kind of down the pike as far as, you know, your version of pension reform. You know, because the rights of workers and working families, I think, has been pretty much front and center in your campaign. There's a couple of people from the Carpenters Union here. You guys endorsed J.B. Pritzker, the nurses, I believe, also. The AFL-CIO, I believe.
Yeah, I'm very proud. I don't know if people heard this today, but I'm very proud to have received the endorsement of the AFL-CIO statewide today. Very happy to represent the working families of this state, and I've worked hard to get to know the members all across the state. And I have to tell you that some of the hardest working, best people in the state of Illinois are the members of those unions and I promise that I will stand up for those working families and for the right to collectively bargain, and most of all, to fight against this Republican effort to pass right-to-work legislation. And just so all of you know, we are basically the last state here in the Midwest that doesn't have right-to-work law. And you know, again, right-to-work isn't what it sounds like, for those of you who don't know. This is putting unions out of business. The unions have made the middle class in this country. And yeah, and standing up for wages, and you know, if you look at the map, I just want to point out, you know, the Koch brothers look at the map of 2016 and they see the blue spot where Illinois is, and then every state around Illinois went Republican, every single one. And they look at that, I look at that and say, we've got an island we have to protect. They look at that and see the blue spot in the middle as the center of the target. And they have their own governor already. And they went after, in 2016, members of the legislature and took out 4 Democrats and in the House, and they took out 1 Democrat in the Senate net. And they came in with tens of millions of dollars to do that, and they're going to do it again in 2018. It's not just about defending Bruce Rauner, and they've already he's thrown in $50 million, Rauner has, and Ken Griffin's thrown in another 20, and there's, I'm sure, money coming from Uline and the rest of that network, that Koch brothers network. They're coming after every legislative seat. You saw them do it in municipal elections, right? In just what, 2 months ago, they went after municipal elections. Maybe you've seen in your neighborhoods, the Republicans have begun to organize in the neighborhoods, and it's because they got hundreds of thousands of dollars going into every single ward because they see an opportunity, because we Democrats have not been well enough organized. We have not run the ground game that we need to run in order to win. That is something that I will do, and not only as a candidate here in this primary, but all throughout this election cycle, to stand up for the Democratic Party, to stand up for all of the candidates up and down the ticket. We need to win up and down the ticket, and we can do that if we put our ground operation. I was knocking on doors at age 11, and I haven't stopped. Nearly every election cycle, I've been knocking on doors, making phone calls. There's nobody who fought against Donald Trump harder last year that's running for governor this year than me. I was knocking on doors and phone banking, and I was raising money and giving money, and I went on national television and called Donald Trump what he is, which is a racist and a xenophobe. And I have not stopped fighting. On the night of the executive order on immigration, I was at O'Hare Airport protesting, and I was very proud to be there with the many attorneys, by the way, who came to get the detainees out that evening. That executive order is wrong. And one last thing, I've not stopped fighting. I was the first gubernatorial candidate in this campaign to call for Donald Trump's impeachment. Yes. He should be gone.